On today's episode, we will be discussing the difference between politics and governance as it relates to government. We will be looking into the roles and impact politicians play in government and how that can affect the ultimate responsibility of governments to govern. He's Braden, I'm Jordan, and together we are the Realist Idealists, and this is Powerview.
There are two major parts that make up government, the politics and the governance. Now, for most people, they look at these two aspects as one and the same. When we think of politics, we think of government. When we think of governance, we also think of government. The reason for this is that in our societies today, these two things are so interconnected that they begin to blur the lines. So, for those of you who need some clarification on these two terms, let's clear things up. In a state where anarchy does not reign in place of government, governance refers to the responsibility of the institution to oversee the decision-making of laws and distribution of resources. Governments are responsible for the overall function of society, and this is done by the act of governing. The reason why we choose to have government rather than anarchy is so that we can have a governing body to help facilitate our society's many moving parts. As societies have gotten bigger and more complex, the importance of government's responsibility for governance has increased. So what is politics? Politics, on the other hand, refers to more of the campaigning of ideas. Typically, this is more of a commonplace in democracies, but even in dictatorships or authoritarian regimes, there is an element of politics, albeit on a smaller scale. Politics is arguably how we decide what our society will look like and what we choose to value. Though these ideas that people campaign on, whether it be to the masses in democracy or to a leader in a dictatorship, are a large contributing factor to our laws, they are not always based upon the responsibility of governments to govern. They can simply be what a person or a group can convince people is right. You see, politics is mainly about appearances. The appearance of something looking right, or adversely, something looking wrong. Simply put, as long as I can make something look like it is the right thing to do, or even the only option, and on the flip side, make something look wrong or bad, then I can, in theory, control the narrative of the result.
So, now that we have a better understanding of what it's meant by politics and governance, this leads to a conversation about, are the people who make up governing decisions the best people to make those decisions? Furthermore, if politics is the way we inform our decision-making, does that make sense if those people have the potential to manipulate or to be manipulated? For instance, most of the time a topic of governance is brought to our attention in our daily lives. Politicians take these political issues that arise within society and utilize them for their own political gain. This is irregardless of whether the end result was a positive outcome for society, as they are using the issue at hand for their own benefit. Another way politics clashes with the responsibility of governance is not just how power can be abused, but also through the process of who is picked to make such decisions. Some politicians can be elected to roles they do not have prior experience related to the position in government they have been elected to fill. The role of traditional democratic governance requires elected politicians to be public servants to fill a role to benefit the wider public's best interests. This can lead to costly governing decisions that can leave certain institutions and governing branches unprepared for the repercussions of those decisions. In many cases, we see issues of governance become polarized. This leads to the issues not being addressed effectively. We see this happening often when polarizing topics of governance are brought to the forefront of the public eye. Due to the nature of these topics being so polarizing, the public can become fractured on how to handle the issue. The issue at hand ends up getting solved at a very slow rate, or worse yet, not at all. This is due to the way politicians can be used to spin certain views and perspectives. We see this almost every major issue of governance at play. as we can see them in modern political landscapes, social unrest, and civil strife become far more frequent as issues of governance become more important and wider to the public. The nature of politics will distract and overshadow the intended core of the matter. These movements themselves become politicized, ultimately taking time and resources away from the original topic trying to be addressed. In this way, politics can not only distract from civil governance, it can halt its progress entirely.
In a way, our court system and justice system directly reflect the idea of governance versus politics. This shouldn't really be a surprise that the way our governments function is reflected in our justice system, but I think many of us haven't taken the time to put two and two together. The governance side of things being, of course, the rule of law and the institutions of the courts, made up of the judges and the lawyers, to give accused their day in court to defend themselves. Where politics enters the justice system is not about certain issues being politicized, though this does, of course, happen. It is actually in the way lawyers function. It is the role of the lawyer to present their case as to why a person is either guilty or innocent. The skill of a lawyer is not simply their knowledge of the law, but how they are able to spin the facts of a case to present a compelling argument to a judge or jury. How they present facts of a case or a deliberate decision not to focus on certain facts is what makes or breaks the ultimate verdict of an innocent or guilty person.
Both governance and politics have their roles in government. Governance, of course, is a responsibility that governments have to maintain and improve civil institutions while providing a stable and social economic base for future generations to build on. Politics allows room for discussion of ideas around social and economic issues, allowing us to come to conclusions on what would benefit society the most. It is not until we look at how these two elements of government are applied together that we see how there can be flaws in the system. As long as governments are governed by politics, issues will continue to be misinformed, flat out ignored, and left unresolved. As always, thank you for listening, and hopefully you've learned something new, and as always, we encourage you and everyone to do their own research and have your own discussions with friends and families, just like we do here. I'm Braden, he's Jordan, and this is Powerview.